I'm Emma, 27 years old, and after years of pushing myself to the limit, I finally got the recognition I deserved. The best part wasn't just the new title, it was the significantly bigger paycheck that came with it. After the excitement of the promotion settled, I made a decision I'd been dreaming about for years. I was going to buy myself a new car, and not just any car, I wanted something special. I spent weeks researching different models, comparing features, and crunching numbers to make sure I could afford the payments. Finally, last Thursday, I walked into the Mercedes dealership. My heart was racing as I looked at all the gleaming new models. The salesman, Mike, was actually pretty helpful and didn't talk down to me like some car salesmen do to women. The moment I sat behind the wheel, I knew this was it. The leather seats, the smooth handling, the quiet purr of the engine, everything felt perfect. 2 hours later, I was driving my dream car off the lot, still hardly believing it was mine. The first few days with my new car were pure joy. Every time I walked up to it in the parking lot at work, I couldn't help smiling. My colleagues were impressed, and honestly, I was proud. I'd earned this, every penny of it. Then came Saturday dinner at my parents' house. As I pulled into the driveway, my younger sister Sarah was the first one out the door. She's 20, still in college, and has always been the baby of the family. Her jaw dropped when she saw the car. She ran around the Mercedes, practically drooling over it. Mom and Dad came out next, and their reactions were less enthusiastic. Mom's eyes widened, and Dad's forehead creased in that way it always does when he's about to lecture me about something. We went inside for dinner, but Sarah couldn't stop talking about the car. "Emma, you have to let me drive it. Just once. My friends would absolutely die if they saw me in that car." "No, Sarah. It's brand new, and I'm not comfortable with anyone else driving it yet." "But I'm a good driver," she whined. "Mom, Dad, tell her she's being selfish." "Emma," Dad said in his disappointed voice, "your sister just wants to borrow it for a little while. Would it kill you to share?" I said no, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's my car, and I get to decide who drives it." Sarah's face turned red, then practically green with anger. She shoved her chair back from the table with a screech and stormed out of the room. I could hear her stomping up the stairs and slamming her bedroom door. "I can't believe how selfish you're being," Mom said, shaking her head. "We raised you better than this." I looked down at my barely touched dinner, suddenly not hungry anymore. Without saying another word, I quickly finished what was on my plate, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Neither of my parents tried to stop me as I left. As I drove home that night, memories started flooding back. The familiar ache in my chest returned, the one I'd felt countless times growing up as Sarah's older sister. Nothing had changed. After all these years, I was still the bad guy for not giving Sarah exactly what she wanted. From day one, Sarah could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. If she wanted a toy, they'd buy it before she could even finish pointing at it. If she cried, the whole house went into crisis mode until she stopped. Meanwhile, I was always told to be more mature or set a good example. A particular memory hit me as I stopped at a red light. I was 16, dealing with the embarrassment of having to use Dad's old hand-me-down smartphone, the one with the cracked screen and battery that died every few hours. Sarah, at 9, had just gotten the latest iPhone because all her friends had one. "Mom," I'd said during dinner one night, "my phone barely works anymore. Could I maybe get a new one too?" Mom had exchanged looks with Dad before answering, "Emma, phones are expensive. If you want a new one, maybe you should think about getting a part-time job. You're old enough now." The very next week, I started working at the local grocery store after school. The manager, Mrs. Thompson, took pity on me and gave me as many hours as she legally could. I still remember the pride mixed with bitterness when I finally bought myself a decent phone 3 months later. Meanwhile, Sarah was showing off her second new phone of the year. Her first one had mysteriously disappeared during a pool party, and our parents immediately replaced it. The truth was, I didn't have a choice but to be independent. Every time I needed something, the answer was always the same: figure it out yourself. Meanwhile, Sarah grew up expecting everything to be handed to her on a silver platter. I pulled into my apartment complex's parking garage, carefully maneuvering my new car into my spot. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was at 27, finally able to buy myself nice things, and my family was still treating me like I was selfish for not sharing them with Sarah. 2 weeks passed relatively peacefully after the dinner incident. I was at home one Saturday afternoon, catching up on some work emails, when my doorbell rang. To my surprise, Sarah was standing there with an unusually sweet smile on her face. "Hey, sis," she chirped, bouncing on her toes. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. Could I maybe take a few pictures with your car? Just for Instagram? Pretty please?" I sighed and grabbed my car keys. "Fine. But just photos." What I thought would be a quick photo turned into a full-blown photo shoot. Sarah had me take pictures of her from every possible angle, leaning against the car, sitting on the hood, which nearly gave me a heart attack, and even posing in the driver's seat with the door open. Finally, after what felt like hours, she declared she had enough material. She was already typing on her phone before she even said goodbye, probably posting the photos right away. That evening, curiosity got the better of me, and I checked her Instagram. Sure enough, there was a whole series of professional-looking shots of her with my Mercedes. The comments section was buzzing. "Oh my god girl, is this yours? When are you taking me for a ride in this beauty? What? Since when do you have a Mercedes?" Sarah's responses were deliberately vague: "Everything in its time," and "good things come to those who wait," and "you'll see soon enough." I rolled my eyes and closed the app. Classic Sarah, trying to make her friends think she had something she didn't. It was childish, but ultimately harmless. Or so I thought. A week later, I was packing for a business trip to Arizona. We had a major client presentation, and I was flying out with my assistant, Tom. I called Mom to let her know I'd be away for a few days, a habit I'd never quite broken. The first 2 days of the trip went well. We'd just finished our presentation and were heading back to the hotel when my phone rang. It was Mom again. I answered, expecting the usual check-in call. "Emma?" Her voice was tense. "There's been an accident." My heart stopped. "What happened? Is everyone okay?" "Sarah," Mom hesitated. "Sarah's fine, but your car, it didn't survive the crash." The words took a moment to register. "My car? What do you mean my car? How could Sarah crash my car?" There was another pause, longer this time. "Emma, that's not important right now. What's important is that Sarah needs your help. They're holding her for drunk driving. And apparently, she resisted arrest." I felt like I was in some kind of twisted nightmare. She stole my car, got drunk, crashed it, and then fought with the police? "Now, Emma," Mom jumped in, her voice taking on that familiar pleading tone, "don't be dramatic. She needs you to come home and help sort this out. She's scared and..." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Messages started pouring in immediately: Mom, Dad, even some relatives, but I couldn't look at them. If I talked to any of them right now, I would say things that couldn't be taken back. I took a few deep breaths to steady myself before calling Tom, my assistant, who was in his hotel room working on the presentation follow-ups. I gave him a quick rundown of the essential details and the remaining tasks. Tom, bless him, didn't even hesitate. "I've got it covered. Go take care of your family situation." Next came the harder call to my boss, Richard. I explained everything: the car theft, the accident, the arrest. To my relief, he was understanding. "Family emergencies take priority," he said. "Tom's more than capable of handling things there. Book the next flight home and keep me posted." 3 hours later, I was on a plane back to town, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The flight felt endless, even though it was only a few hours. When I finally got to my apartment building, all I wanted was a shower and a moment to think. But the universe had other plans. The moment I opened my apartment door, the smell hit me, stale beer and cigarettes. My stomach dropped as I flipped on the lights. The place was trashed. Empty bottles littered every surface, some tipped over on my cream carpet, leaving dark stains. Cigarette butts were scattered across my coffee table, burn marks dotting the wood. Half-eaten snacks and pizza boxes were strewn everywhere. Then it hit me, the spare key. Mom had insisted on keeping one for emergencies when I first moved in. Sarah must have taken it to throw a party while she had my car. I was still standing in the middle of my ruined living room when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom, "We know you're back. Come to the house now." Fury propelled me through the 15-minute drive to my parents' house. They were waiting on the porch, both looking like they'd aged years in the past day. But any sympathy I might have felt evaporated when they started in on me the moment I stepped out of my Uber. "How dare you hang up on us?" Mom shrieked. "We've been trying to reach you for hours." I cut them off mid-rant. "Where is she?" They exchanged glances. Mom's voice dropped. "She's at the police station. They're holding her until someone posts bail." "I'm going there," I said flatly, pulling out my phone to call another taxi. "We're coming with you," Dad announced. It wasn't a request. The ride to the police station was tense. I sat in the front seat next to the driver, while my parents whispered furiously in the back. I tried to tune them out, but fragments of their conversation kept reaching me. "We need to talk to the dean. Her scholarship. Maybe if we explain it was just a mistake. She can't have this on her record." They were already plotting how to get Sarah out of this mess, how to protect her from the consequences of her actions. Just like they'd always done. Some things never change, I thought as we walked into the station. Sarah messes up, and everyone else is expected to fix it for her. The fluorescent lights of the police station made everything look harsh and unreal. An officer led us through to the holding cells, and there was Sarah, still wearing her party clothes from the night before, mascara streaked down her face. The moment she saw me, she gripped the cell bars and started screaming. "Emma! Finally! This is all your fault. You and your stupid car got me into this mess. Get me out of here right now." I stood there, stunned by her audacity. A police officer approached us, Officer Martinez, according to his nameplate. He had the weary look of someone who'd seen this kind of family drama too many times before. "You must be Emma Thompson," he said, checking his notepad. "The actual Emma." "What do you mean, the actual Emma?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what he meant. Officer Martinez sighed. "Well, around 2 a.m. this morning, we received multiple calls about a Mercedes being driven erratically on Palmer Street. When our officers arrived, they found the car wrapped around a telephone pole. Your sister and 3 friends were there, all clearly intoxicated." He flipped a page in his notebook. According to witnesses, they'd been racing down residential streets, music blasting, hanging out the windows. When we tried to arrest her, she claimed she was Emma Thompson and that it was her car. She became quite aggressive with the officers. I turned to her, my voice shaking with anger. "Why did you tell them you were me?" Sarah rolled her eyes and shrugged, like this was all some minor inconvenience. "Well, it was your car. You should be the one dealing with this mess." "Dealing with," I started, but Mom cut me off. "Emma, honey," she said in that tone that always meant I was about to be guilted into something. "What's important now is getting Sarah out of here. We need you to pay her bail." Officer Martinez cleared his throat. "There's also the matter of the damaged property and the medical bills," Dad jumped in. "The other girl, Katie, she's in the hospital. Her parents are threatening to sue." "They won't sue if we handle this quickly," Mom added urgently. "Emma, you need to pay for Katie's medical expenses. We can't let this go to court." The officer nodded grimly. "Yes, Miss Thompson. The Andersons, Katie's parents, have already filed a personal injury claim. Katie has a broken collarbone and a severe concussion. They're quite upset, understandably. So what's the total? I asked, feeling numb. Mom started counting on her fingers. Well, there's the bail, which is set at $5,000. Then the damage to the telephone pole, that's probably another few thousand. Katie's medical bills, and of course, we'll need a good lawyer. I looked at my family, Mom wringing her hands, Dad with his stern disapproving face, and Sarah sniffling in her cell, and something inside me finally snapped. No, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm not paying anything. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's mouth dropped open in shock. What do you mean, no? Mom's voice rose to that shrill pitch that usually made me back down. Not anymore. You can't do this to me. Sarah grabbed the cell bars, her knuckles turning white. You can't leave me in here. Dad stepped forward, his face turning that dangerous shade of red I remembered from childhood. Emma, your sister needs your help. This is not up for discussion. You're right, it's not up for discussion, I said, standing straighter. Sarah stole my car. She broke into my apartment, took my car without permission, got drunk, and crashed it. She endangered her friends' lives. And then, to top it all off, she tried to frame me for everything by giving my name to the police. But it was your car, Sarah shrieked. You're responsible. Responsible? I cut her off, my voice rising. Let me tell you about responsibility, Sarah. I'm the registered owner of that car. The insurance is in my name. But guess what? You're not on my insurance policy. Do you have any idea what that means? Mom tried to interrupt, but I kept going. It means the insurance company won't pay a cent for the damage. Not for the car, not for the telephone pole, not for Katie's medical bills. And because you gave them my name, I might even have legal problems now. Emma, Dad's voice held a warning tone, you need to think about what's best for this family. Oh, like you thought about what was best for me when you gave Sarah my spare key? When you let her throw parties in my apartment? When you always took her side, no matter what she did wrong? Sarah was full on crying now, those big theatrical sobs she'd perfected since childhood. You're so mean. You've always been jealous of me. I turned to Officer Martinez, who had been watching this whole scene unfold. Officer, I want to file a report for theft and breaking and entering. My sister stole my car. She illegally entered my apartment using a spare key she took without permission, and she stole my car keys. I want to press charges. Sarah's sobs turned to screams. You can't do this to me. Mom, Dad. Don't let her do this. My parents exploded. Mom started wailing about how I was destroying the family, while Dad took a threatening step toward me, his face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little, he started, raising his hand, but Officer Martinez quickly stepped between us. Sir, the officer's voice was firm, I'm going to need you to step back and calm down, or you'll be joining your younger daughter in a cell. 2 other officers had appeared, apparently drawn by the commotion. Dad backed off, but his eyes were burning with fury. Officer Martinez, I said, my voice shaking slightly but determined, I'd like to make that official statement about the theft now. Officer Martinez led me to his office. He pulled out a form and slid it across to me. My hand shook slightly as I began writing. I detailed everything, how Sarah had accessed my apartment using a stolen spare key, how she'd taken my car keys without permission, how she'd driven drunk and crashed my car, injured her friend, and then tried to pin everything on me by giving my name to the police. When I finally left the police station, the parking lot was empty, my parents' car was gone. A mix of relief and something else, something heavier, settled in my chest. They'd left without even trying to talk to me again. Somehow, that said everything. I called an Uber, constantly checking over my shoulder during the ride home. Part of me expected to see my parents' car following me, or to find them waiting outside my apartment building. But the street was quiet when I arrived. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. My apartment didn't feel safe anymore, not when I knew Sarah had been able to walk right in whenever she wanted. I called my landlady, Angela, hoping she'd understand. "Angela? I'm so sorry to bother you this late, but I have a serious situation." I explained everything: the stolen key, the party, the car theft. "Would it be possible to change the locks?" "I'll pay for everything, of course." "Oh honey, of course." Angela's voice was warm with concern. "I'll call Joe right now. He's our regular locksmith. He can be there within the hour." True to her word, Joe arrived quickly and changed all the locks. I watched him work, feeling some of my anxiety ease with each turn of his tools. When he finished, he handed me the only copies of the new keys. Next, I went down to talk to Marcus, our building's concierge. He'd always been friendly to me, and now his face darkened with concern as I explained the situation. "I need to make sure my parents and sister aren't allowed into the building," I said. "Under any circumstances." I barely slept that night, jumping at every sound outside my window. When my phone rang early the next morning, I was already awake. It was my insurance company. "Ms. Thompson," the agent's voice was professional, but cold. "I'm calling about the incident with your Mercedes. According to the police report, the driver was intoxicated and not listed on your policy." "That's right," I said. "My sister stole my car. I filed charges." Nevertheless, she continued, "due to the circumstances, the DUI, the injury to a passenger, the property damage, I regret to inform you that we won't be able to cover any of the damages. Furthermore, this incident will affect your insurance rating going forward." I hung up and sat on my couch, anger building inside me all over again. Sarah hadn't just destroyed my car, she'd created a domino effect of problems that would follow me for years. My insurance rates would skyrocket if I could get coverage at all. There might be legal issues, because she'd used my identity. And now Katie's parents might sue, thinking I was somehow responsible, because it was my car. I knew I had to call Katie's parents. The Andersons had known me since high school. Katie and I had taken dance classes together, and I'd even babysat her a few times before college. They deserved to hear the truth from me directly. My hands trembled as I dialed Mrs. Anderson's number. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Anderson, I need to tell you everything that happened," I said, and then I did. I told her about Sarah stealing my car, about the party in my apartment where they'd all been drinking, including Katie, and about how Sarah had tried to pin everything on me. When I finished, I heard Mr. Anderson sigh heavily in the background. They had me on speaker. "Emma," he said, "we're not going to pursue any legal action against you. But we will be suing your sister. Katie's medical bills are substantial, and her recovery will take months." 2 days later, I heard through my aunt that my parents had borrowed money from various family members to bail Sarah out. Then I saw my mother's Facebook post. "A daughter's true colors show in times of crisis. When your own sister refuses to help you in your darkest hour, it breaks a mother's heart. Family should always come first." I couldn't let that stand. I wrote my own post, laying out the entire truth: the theft, the drunk driving, the identity fraud, everything. But instead of support, I got messages from relatives telling me I was cruel for exposing family business and abandoning my sister when she needed me. The calls started coming nonstop after that. First my parents, then Sarah, all demanding I help pay for a lawyer. When I blocked their numbers, they switched to messaging apps. When I blocked those, they started showing up at my apartment. Thank God for Marcus, my building's concierge. He turned them away every time, but I knew I couldn't live like this forever. I found a new apartment across town, in a secure building with good security. I didn't tell anyone the address, not even my aunt, who'd been the only family member somewhat sympathetic to my side. At work, I spoke with our head of security. "I hate to ask this," I said, "but my family members might try to show up here. They're not to be allowed in under any circumstances." Weeks passed. Through the family grapevine, I heard that my parents had borrowed even more money for Sarah's legal fees. The court case with the Andersons went exactly as expected. Sarah was ordered to pay substantial damages for Katie's medical bills and emotional distress. I also heard that Sarah had been expelled from college. Apparently, a DUI and assault on a police officer violated their student conduct code. Who would have thought? My mother posted another dramatic message online about how I'd destroyed my sister's future by not helping her. This time, I didn't bother responding. Let them think what they want. In the end, I lost my dream car. The insurance company wouldn't pay a cent, and my rates at other companies were now through the roof. I lost my family, though honestly, had I ever really had them? I lost my comfortable apartment and had to start over somewhere new. But as I sit here in my new place, enjoying the peace and quiet of a life free from family drama, I realize I gained something too. Freedom. Freedom from the guilt trips, from the constant demands, from the expectation that I would always be the one to fix everyone else's mistakes.